Welcome to Bedcrime Stories Podcast. I'm your host, T. Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well. Do me a favor, hit that like button, and now let's get started. After 50-year-old Richard Allen was arrested and charged with 2 counts for the deaths of 14-year-old Libby German and 13-year-old Abby Williams, who died in February of 2017, after encountering a man who came to be called Bridge Guy, there's been a lot of confusion, and in my opinion, this confusion surrounds 5 primary issues. 1. Why the affidavit for probable cause to arrest Richard Allen was sealed. 2. Why the media is fighting hard to have that document and others in the case unsealed. 3. What Allen's charges are exactly and what they say about his involvement in the teens' deaths. We know he's facing 2 counts of that red rum word I can't say on YouTube, but those counts fall under a subsection that includes red rum being committed along with another crime. We don't yet know what that other crime is. 4. Why Judge Diener suddenly recused himself from Allen's case. And 5. What, if any, connection does 28-year-old catfisher Kegan Kline have to the Delphi case? I'm going to clarify all 5 of those for you, but before that, let me share the latest news. Richard Allen told Carroll County Judge in his initial hearing that he will provide his own defense attorney, but as of last week Friday, the documents do not have a name for that attorney. So it sounds like Allen is in the process of finding an attorney for himself. We also learned that Allen has now been moved to another facility within the Indiana Department of Correction, or IDOC. We knew he was going to be moved, but now it's official. He has been moved. No one's saying where he is for safety reasons. Let's begin with question 1, why the affidavit for probable cause to arrest Allen was sealed. According to Judge Diener, the Carroll County prosecutor, Nick McLeland, asked him to prohibit public access to the records. That request was filed on Friday, October 28, 2022, and Judge Diener signed it the same day. In asking for the documents to be sealed, Prosecutor McLeland cited Rule 6 of Indiana Rules to Access Court Records, which states, and I quote, "In extraordinary circumstances, a court record that otherwise would be publicly accessible may be excluded from the public access by a court if a requester makes a written request that shows dissemination of the record will create a significant risk of substantial harm or a prejudicial effect to ongoing proceedings that cannot be avoided if the record is released." End quote. So it sounds like Prosecutor McLeland is worried that if the documents are made public, it may lead to someone getting harmed, perhaps Richard Allen, or it may lead to potential jurors for Allen's trial being prejudiced by what they know about the crime. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, so that's just my interpretation. And Prosecutor McLeland has published a notice of a public hearing to be held on November 22nd to determine whether important records in Allen's case will remain sealed. The public will be able to weigh in on whether or not they feel the records should be released. The public has a right to know exactly what Allen is accused of so that they know what danger, if any, he poses to the public. We know that Richard Allen was charged with 2 counts of red rum with an underlying offense. We don't know what that underlying offense is because the files are sealed. Moving on to question 2, why the media is pressing so hard to have those documents unsealed. I want to explain why I'm changing my mind and why I now feel the documents should be unsealed. First off, the notion of probable cause is in the 4th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and probable cause must be met before the police can make an arrest or conduct a search to establish probable cause so that a judge will sign off on an arrest warrant or a search warrant. The police have to list the evidence they have that shows that a prudent person would conclude that an offense has been committed and that the subject, in this case Richard Allen, is the person who committed that offense. It takes a lot to convince a judge to sign an affidavit for an arrest or a search. The police have to list the evidence they have that shows that there is probable cause to either arrest someone or search a property. The judge can either say, yes, I see that you have enough evidence to make a solid case that this person likely committed that offense, or no, you don't have enough evidence to show probable cause to arrest that person. Under the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, American citizens have the right to see the signed affidavit for probable cause to arrest a person or to search someone's property. The way I see it, it's almost a safeguard for the person who's about to be arrested, because the citizens can also see if probable cause was established to warrant arresting that person. Allowing citizens to see the affidavit for probable cause also enables the public to know if the person that's going to be arrested or was arrested really poses a threat or a danger that he or she should not be allowed to walk amongst us. These documents are normally made public right from the start. It's highly unusual for an affidavit for probable cause to be sealed and kept from the public's eyes. By getting that affidavit, the police are saying that they believe Richard M. Allen is the person who took Libby and Abby's lives. So even though Allen is innocent until proven guilty, he is the person the police believe committed this crime. And apparently the police had enough evidence against Richard Allen to convince the judge to sign that affidavit for his arrest. The way I see this, the affidavit proves to both a judge and to the rest of us that the person being charged or the person whose property is being searched has really committed an offense to warrant those actions. So it's a protection for all American citizens. We get to see the affidavits so that we can see why the arrest or the search are warranted. And as Americans, we have the right to see the documents. What Richard Allen's charges are exactly and what they say about his involvement in the teens' deaths. We know that Richard Allen is facing 2 counts of red rum, but until recently, no one knew precisely which subsection of Indiana's red rum charge was at play. Now, the court docket says that Allen is charged with red rum under Indiana Code 35-42-1-12, which is red rum involving a specific underlying criminal offense. However, the court has not said which of the underlying offenses listed in this code is the one that Richard Allen has been charged with. So this code says that the person charged did another person in while committing or attempting to commit another crime. The code lists a bunch of crimes, so we don't yet know exactly which one of these Allen is accused of. Include arson, burglary, the essay of a child, consumer product tampering, criminal deviant conduct, which could be deviant essay of a child, nabbing someone, robbery, the R offense that rhymes with cape, human trafficking, promotion of human trafficking of a child, and more. Charge against Richard Allen could be one of the following, in my opinion. 1. Committing essay of the girls. 2. Nabbing the girls from the bridge and forcing them down the hill against their will. 3. Committing criminal deviant conduct by taking photos and or a video of the crime. I think it's possible that Richard Allen could belong to some dark web group that shares child P. That's pure speculation on my part, but I read about one such online group that was caught, and to belong to that group and to stay in it, members had to continually provide fresh, new child P. That group was basically creating its own library of child P, and it was a library that was continually growing with new materials on its online shelves, so to speak, because the members had to provide it in order to keep their membership. I did a video about this depraved group when covering the Summer Wells case. The members used fake names, and there were varying levels of membership. To attain the highest level, a member had to bring fresh child P, meaning they had to make videos of their own acts against kids. It's horrible stuff, and these people are the sickest of the sick. If Richard Allen is found to have belonged to such a group, could he have met the likes of Kegan Kline in it? This is me speculating. I'm not saying that this is what happened. I'm just looking at what may have led Richard Allen to be involved in this horrible crime against Libby and Abby. That is what his motive may have been. And while the police believe Richard Allen is their guy, I will keep reminding myself and you guys that Richard Allen has a right to a fair and impartial trial, and he's not guilty of anything until a jury says so. Moving on to question 4. Why did Judge Diener recuse himself from Allen's case? According to an article on the 13 WTHR website, Judge Diener begged state court administrators to help him deal with a brewing storm of requests for information. In previous emails and court documents, Judge Diener has cited safety concerns and that he and his staff have been overwhelmed by the public attention and requests for information. Judge Diener has also said that he's been worried for his family's safety after sealing the court documents in the Delphi case. Remember, the prosecutor was the person who requested that the documents be sealed, and Judge Diener approved the prosecutor's request. So maybe Judge Diener signed the request against his own better judgment. He seems to feel that his approving the documents being sealed is what's causing this brewing storm of requests, because the media and the public and YouTubers want to see what's in those documents. Diener said he, and I quote, has determined that the particular circumstances with the underlying case warrant recusal and dictate that a special judge be appointed in the case, end quote. The judge referenced in that statement, under Indiana's Code of Judicial Conduct, there are several reasons that would require a judge to recuse himself or herself from a case. They include 1, if the judge has a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party or a party's lawyer. 2, if the judge has personal knowledge of disputed facts for the case. 3, if the judge has a close personal relationship to someone involved in the case. And 4, if they have a third degree of relationship to someone in the case. Now, I also want to share a Q&A that Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter participated in with I-Team 8 News' reporter Richard Essex. Let me read the Q&A to you. Richard Essex is asking the questions and Superintendent Doug Carter is answering them. And then I'll follow with Carter's answer, and I'll go one by one. So here's the first question. Whose decision was it to seal the probable cause? Carter, the prosecuting attorney that was approved by the judge. Essex, did you have any say in that? Carter, I did not know that was going to happen. Essex, would you like to see the probable cause out? Carter, I have seen the probable cause. Essex, would you like for me to see the probable cause? Carter, I think absolutely yes. Yes, yes. Okay, T here. Let me interject that I-Team 8 has put in a request to make those documents public, and the newly assigned judge, Judge Francis Gull of Allen County, will now have to decide how long the documents can be sealed. Isn't it ironic that Richard Allen's case is now going to be overseen by a judge from Allen County? That just strikes me as ironic. Now, let's get back to the Q&A between reporter Richard Essex and Superintendent Doug Carter. Essex, you released 3 seconds of video with some audio, I think in 2019. Is the voice that we hear from Libby's phone, is that Richard Allen? Again, I think that once the probable cause affidavit was signed by the judge, that changes things for the investigative team, and I don't profess to be a part of that investigative team. Richard, so it would be inappropriate for us to speculate or talk about what we know until the right time, which is going to be in a court. Note that I-Team 8 then posed this question to Dr. Jody Maderia of the IU Law School in Bloomington, Indiana. Why would the judge keep the probable cause sealed? And Maderia responded as follows. There may be other individuals that they are seeking to apprehend, and there could be details they don't want getting out in the public to control the quality of that investigation. End quote. So, although at least one criminal profiler that I listened to said that she believes Richard Allen acted alone and that he is a serialist, meaning someone who commits red rum multiple times on different occasions, it sounds like some other people are thinking that there may be other individuals involved in the crime against Libby and Abby. This is all speculation, of course, because no one from law enforcement has said that, and we haven't seen those documents. But here's some speculation that we can do based on certain incidents that have happened recently. And this is where 28-year-old Kegan Kline, that Humpty Dumpty of a guy who's currently in jail in Miami County, Indiana, facing a slew of child P charges. Here's how he comes into the Delphi picture. In 2017, Kegan Kline was free, meaning he was not in jail, and he was living in Peru, Indiana with his father, Tony Kline. Kegan Kline didn't land in jail until August 29th of 2020. That's when he was charged with 30 child P-related counts. Those charges stemmed from a search of his and his dad, Tony's, Peru home, 5th of 2017, just 11 days after Libby and Abby were discovered deceased. Now, according to an article in the Daily Mail dated November 4th, 2022, in recent months, Kegan Kline has been cooperating with the Indiana State Police in the Delphi investigation. The article states that Kegan may be cooperating in a bid to barter a plea deal on his own case or to lessen the charges he's facing. So far, we know that Kegan Kline is linked to the Delphi case only because of the fake Instagram and Snapchat accounts of a handsome male model. Kegan called the fake profiles Anthony Shots, and he used them to communicate with young girls, some even as young as 7 years old. In fact, Kegan Kline told investigators that he communicated with more than 200 girls using those fake accounts. Now, when Richard Allen was recently arrested and charged in Libby and Abby's deaths, and the investigators told us that the investigation was still active and open, it led many to speculate that the police are still looking for additional suspects in the Delphi case. Knowing that Kegan Kline has been cooperating with the police of late is making a lot of people think that perhaps Kegan is the person who led the police to Richard Allen's house for that 12-hour search that they did prior to arresting Allen. Note that 6 days after Richard Allen was charged in Libby and Abby's deaths, the Miami County, Indiana prosecutor filed a motion asking the court to dismiss 5 of the 30 charges that Kegan Kline is due to stand trial for in January of 2023. Affidavit for probable cause to arrest Richard Allen has been sealed is because it may list the names of one or more suspects in the Delphi case who have yet to be charged. If that turns out to be true, it's understandable why the Carroll County prosecutor would not want to unseal the documents. That would give other suspects a heads up and possibly lead them to destroying evidence or the country. The Daily Mail article said, and I quote, "New court documents obtained by the dailymail.com strongly suggest Kline's involvement," end quote. So they're talking about Kegan Kline and his involvement in the Delphi case. The Daily Mail cited a previously sealed court order that was filed on August 19th of 2022 that confirms that Kegan Kline was temporarily released into the custody of Indiana State Police on the day that officers began a 5-week search of the Wabash River near Kegan's former home in Peru, Indiana. That search took place in September of 2022, so just a few months ago. The Daily Mail looked at the court order and then studied the transcript of an interview Kegan Kline did with 2 detectives in August of 2020 when he was arrested for all that child pee. The transcript indicated that law enforcement never suspected Kegan Kline of being Bridge Guy, but they were convinced that Kegan was protecting Bridge Guy. According to the Daily Mail, the transcript shows that when Kegan Kline denied knowing who harmed Libby and Abby, a polygraph test found that he was lying, likely knows who harmed Libby and Abby. Thanks to phone records, the investigators were able to see that the fake Anthony Shots Snapchat profile communicated with 14-year-old Libby German at 8 a.m. on the day she went for a walk with Libby on the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana. During their interview with Kegan Kline, the investigators accused him of grooming multiple young girls, some as young as 7. The naive young girls believed that they were either communicating with a hunky model named Anthony Shots or a teenage girl named Emily Ann, when in fact they were actually exchanging text messages and photos with the pockmarked and poofy Kegan Kline. Can you imagine? If those girls only knew who was really behind that Anthony Schatz profile, I'm pretty sure they would not have been quite so enchanted. When Kegan Kline sat down for his 2020 interview with the detectives, he'd already flunked the polygraph and shown deception in answering the question, "Do you know who harmed Libby and Abby?" The detectives already knew that at least one other user had access to Kegan's fake Anthony Schatz accounts. Note that Kegan was living in the house in Peru with his dad, Tony, when the communications with all these little girls were going on. So now the question is, who other than Kegan Kline was logging into the Anthony Schatz fake Instagram and Snapchat accounts? During that same August 2020 interview with Kegan Kline, the detectives confronted Kegan with the fact that they knew Anthony Schatz had messaged Libby German for a period of several weeks, offering to buy Libby gifts and sending her pictures of himself and what he said was his Ferrari. According to one of the detectives who interviewed Kegan Kline, the fake Anthony Schatz profile messaged Libby during the sleepover she had with Abby ahead of their hike on February 13th. In fact, this fake Anthony Schatz person is one of the last people Libby ever communicated with on the day she and Abby went missing. February 13th, at 8 o'clock in the morning, two separate devices log in, log out, log in, log out, all within minutes of each other to the same Anthony Schatz Snapchat account. The detective showed Kegan a subsequent message exchange between the Anthony Schatz account and a friend of Libby's. The conversation began with Libby's friend asking Anthony Schatz if he'd heard about Libby and Abby. Anthony Schatz responded, "Oh my God, what happened?" And then Anthony Schatz tells the friend, "Yeah, we were supposed to meet, but she never showed up," end quote. He means Anthony Schatz was supposed to meet up with Libby. According to the detectives interviewing Kegan, he reacted violently to this information. He claimed that he never sent that message, and he accused the detectives of implying that he had harmed the girls. The detective replied as follows to Kegan, and I quote, "I can honestly sit here, and I'm telling you, I do not believe that you did Liberty or Abby in, but you need to tell me who was logging into these accounts," end quote. Kegan Kline kept claiming that he did not remember who other than himself had access to that Snapchat account, but note that Kegan Kline has been caught out in tons of lies, so it's hard to know what information he says is true and what information he says is a lie. The detectives theorized that Kegan Kline had established the Anthony Schatz profile to groom little girls, including Libby, but then allowed another man to enter the scene. Just who that other man is, we don't yet know. Could it be Kegan's father, Tony Kline, who was living with him in that same house, or could Richard Allen be the other man? If it for probable cause is released, and that's only maybe if it's in that document, or until the trial is held, or until another arrest is made. One of the detectives said to Kegan, and I quote, "We have Liberty being groomed, and unfortunately she was completely enthralled with Anthony Schatz, end quote. Poor Libby was drawn in by the photos of this cute guy and Kegan Kline's ability to write schmoozy messages to her. It's so upsetting to hear about this and to think that Libby's grandparents had no clue that she was doing this with this Anthony Schatz fake person. They had no idea. Could see two different writing styles in the Anthony Schatz communications. So one writing style is attributed to Kegan, but who did the other writing style belong to? Again, could it be Kegan's father, Tony Kline, or could it be someone else? We don't know. And note that when the investigators checked out Kegan Kline's multiple devices, meaning all of his phones and computers, all of them had their histories intact, except for the one that contained Anthony Schatz communications with Libby German. That device had been wiped clean. The detectives kept pressing Kegan, asking him, "Why are you protecting somebody else?" But Kegan just kept saying that he was the only person who used the Anthony Schatz accounts, and he kept maintaining that he didn't know anything about what happened to Libby and Abby. So that was back in 2020. So now that Kegan Kline has been in jail for 2+ years, people are wondering if he's maybe decided to stop protecting the other person who signed into the Anthony Schatz account. And they're also wondering if something Kegan said led the police to Richard Allen's house. The Daily Mail article goes on to say that their attempts to speak with members of Kline's family about his involvement with the Delphi investigation were met with extreme hostility. So that sounds like it could have been Kegan's father, Tony Kline, who met the Daily Mail's request to talk with extreme hostility. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories, do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment. If you want to support the channel, you can through a membership, and you can also do one-time donations to my Patreon.